It was funny, Chip, because I said to Chip, I was like, I think my buddy James wanted to go, but he got the bone the last time, and I was like, I don't mean to sound selfish, but I was like, I really wanted to make sure that I got the bone this time.
So you didn't invite him?
No.
Did you? Did he want to go, you think?
I feel like he kind of wanted to go, and he was like wondering if I was going to invite him. I'm definitely inviting him next time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was just like, I don't mean to sound selfish, but I was like, I really want to make sure I get the bone.
Well, that's got to be a little frustrating. So you went with your buddy and Carl, and he got a bone.
And he got the bone.
And then you went fishing on the beach.
And Drew got the bone.
And Drew got 2 bonefish.
Drew got 2 bonefish.
So you figured if you went fishing by yourself,
might increase my chances.
Yeah, like by 100%.
Yeah.
Considering if you would have been by yourself the first day, you would have got a bone. If you would have been by yourself the second day, you would have got 2 bones.
Well, let me tell you this. I actually, when I went with Drew, I still don't think if I had gone by myself, I would have gotten a bone because that line I was using was too heavy. And that thing had so much slack in it, and I was like, yeah, this wouldn't have worked.
You think? I think you would have got him.
You think so?
Yeah. Because you were chumming him. I mean,
Well, not like I was the first day. When you came with us, we chummed him hard, and we still didn't even get a hit.
Right.
The first day when I went with Drew freaking threw it out, and boom, got hit, like literally within a minute.
So you think they were sitting there already?
I think so. I just think it was too much of a coincidence that they hit that fast.
You guys are listening to the Real Guy Podcast. I got Stephen Bonefish Busacca here today. He broke his cherry this week. He got his first bonefish. We're all really proud of him.
First 2, actually.
2 bonefish.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That was kind of like his. That was his goal for this summer, was to catch a bonefish. And it's amazing what happens when you actually try to achieve your goal.
And when you actually go with the real guys.
Well, yeah,
you know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, so tell everybody. So what were your options to go and target your bone? You had to figure it out in your own mind. Okay, how am I going to go do this? So go ahead.
So I called you, as you remember, and I said, Jeff, I'm dying to get this bonefish. What do I do? And you said to me, well, there's a couple things you could do. And I said, well, what about Carl Ball? Because I know that's what he specializes in. And you said, yeah, give Carl a call. So gave Carl a call, and we did the first trip, and, it was kind of a bust. We got rained out. Still a blast, but we got rained out, and then my buddy James ended up getting a bonefish, and I didn't.
So, but you guys got really rained out. Like, you guys couldn't really hardly pull around and look. So you were like, what, sitting and chumming?
Dude, yeah, because it was raining so hard at one point that Carl was standing maybe 4 feet away from me, and I could barely even see him.
Yeah,
that was hard.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate curse when it comes to bonefishing. Is just a horrible, overcast, rainy day because you can't see nothing. You can't really. You can't really
sight them.
Yeah, you can't make up for it, and you're not sure what's really going on because you just don't have the visibility.
No. So, like I said, we had fun, but it was rough that day. So I told Carl I wanted to book another trip with him. So this time I went just he and I. And we started out chumming them, and we started off by catching bonnet head shark after bonnet head shark. But me, I like to try to turn kind of a negative into a positive. And I told Carl, I said, but you know what? We're catching these bonnet heads consecutively.
Consecutive bonnet heads.
Consecutive. How many of you guys out there can say that you catch bonnet heads consecutively while targeting bonefish? Probably not many of you.
I don't know, dude. That's a pretty common catch.
I know.
But anyway, you were having fun doing that, I suppose.
Well, it's fun. It's always fun when the rod gets bent. But after a while, I was like, man, the bonefish got to come by at some point. And then finally, rod goes off, and I said to Carla, and we were like, wait, this feels a little bit different. Get it in, bonefish. And I was like, all right, I finally got my first bonefish. It was maybe like 3 pounds, not a bad one. So got him in, got my picture, and we started getting the lines back out there. And I hooked a bonefish, and we both knew for a fact it was a bonefish. And this thing must have been big, because this thing started going, and it didn't stop. And even Carl was like, whoa. And then somehow the hook just came out. And I said to Carl, I said, did I do something wrong? And he goes, no. He goes, you looked like you were doing everything right. He goes, I'm sure. He goes, because he definitely had it, because this thing was screaming drag. But I said, Carl, I said, that was definitely a bone. He goes, that was 100% a bone. He goes, that might have been a double-digit one, too. And I was like, man, I would have loved to have seen that.
All right.
So that now sun's starting to come out. And Carl goes, all right, now we're going to actually try to sight cast him. And this was like what I had been waiting for now, because I'm just like, this is like the real way to do it.
Yeah.
So I said to Carl, oh, so we're going to kind of do like where we have like the live shrimp and everything. And then he goes, no. He goes, I want you to do this the real way. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to give you this little jig. He goes, and instead of just casting to them and just wait and let them sniff it out, he goes, you have got to try to entice them to eat that jig. And I'm kind of sitting there like, well, yeah, that's definitely the real way. I'm like, it sounded like the real hard way to catch him too. I was a little intimidated.
So you're afraid he was raising the bar, and you're like, man, let me just get one.
I was like, dude, like we went from freaking 0 to freaking 100 in a matter of that. I was like, but okay. I was like, look, let's do it. We start pulling for about 30 minutes. And all of a sudden, Carl goes, I see them. And I'm like, where? He goes, 11 o'clock. And I look over there. And it was the coolest thing because we see them tailing. Just like how you see in the TV shows. We just see them tailing. And I kind of like sat there and I was standing there in almost like a little bit of disbelief.
Just trying to take it all in. Like, that's really them. That's really them.
I was like, oh my gosh, and we're heading right for them. So, we're getting closer and Carl's like explaining to me. He goes, okay, I'm going to tell you when we're in range to cast. He said, now, very important. He goes, you need to make sure you know which way they're headed. Are they going to the left, the right, towards us? He goes, you need to keep that into consideration because that's how you know where to cast it. So I'm like, okay, so we're getting closer and closer. I can see the bones tailing. My heart is freaking, I can freaking hear it slamming against my freaking chest. I'm so nervous. So we're getting closer and closer. And finally, we get close. And Carl's like, all right, make sure you freaking, you see which way they're going, right? And I'm like, not really. I just see tails. Right. I can't tell which way they're going, but I just see tails. So I'm just kind of standing there trying to figure out. He goes, okay, all right, go ahead and cast now. And I'm still not sure which way they're going. He's like, all right, you got to hurry up and cast because otherwise you're going to spook them. And I'm just like trying to figure out, I'm getting ready to make the cast. He's like, dude.
Make the cast, dude.
He's like, we're about to run over them at any second. You got to cast it. And I freaking I just made a judgment call. And I casted it to where I thought they were headed, landed it, and I literally just went bounce, thump, and this thing takes off like a bullet. And I'm almost standing there too like, did this really just happen? I'm almost thinking to myself, like, this better not be a bonnethead shark again. And we're fighting this thing. And now Carl, of course, is like spinning us around in a circle because the thing kept trying to go under the boat. Long story short, finally starts to wear out, get him to the surface, and I see how big he is. And of course, my jaw hits the floor. And I said, Carl, would you mind if we net this one? And he's like, sure. So, I'm standing there, the thing's thrashing and everything, and Carl's getting the net, and I felt bad, dude. I apologized to him afterward, but I said, Carl, I don't mean to be rude, but you think we could hurry it up with that net? Because I'm like, that thing is thrashing. I would have cried if that thing came off right there at the boat. So he gets the net, we get it over, scooped, caught fish. And I mean, I thought I was about ready to freaking hug Carl for crying out loud. I was just like, dude. And I said to him, Carl, can I get in the water for the picture? And he goes, of course. Because that was what I had kind of pictured, was like a nice shot of me in the flats with it. So got in the water with it. And I got to tell you, so I said to Carl, how big do you think this is? He goes, this is probably about a 7-pound bone. I never in my life dreamed that I'd be able to sight cast a bonefish, let alone one that big. And Jeff, I got to tell you, when I actually grabbed that thing, the weight and the girth, I was just like,
yeah, they're stuck, you little suckers.
Whew. Got some nice picks, back in the water quick, kicked off strong. And I mean, Carl, he was so happy. He actually said to me, he was like, he goes, I got to tell you, he goes, I really wanted to be the one to put you on your first bonefish.
And there you go.
And there you go, man.
How about that, dude? Bonefish Busacca gets his first bonefish. That's pretty cool. I love the story, dude. You're totally, enamored by the fish, enamored by Carl, the whole situation. Sounds like it couldn't have been better.
Oh.
And dude, I mean, I think I caught my first bonefish. God, it was. See, I'm 51, so I caught my first bonefish like freaking, 35 years ago. 30.
How old were you? Like 20?
No, I was like freaking 13.
You were that young?
Yeah.
That was Isla Morada, right?
That was Isla Morada, and I caught him in the rain, kind of sitting on the boat, not really fishing for a bonefish. But I remember, my first bonefish, and then I remember how fired up I used to get about going bone fishing every time I would see one. Me and the Big Burst Man Burster just absolutely fell in love with the game, and we did it religiously for probably a decade.
Really?
And God, we loved it. So to hear your voice and to hear your story, I just wish that I could get that feeling again, like I got when, way back when. And it's just, it's what the game's all about, for one, you caught him with Carl Ball.
That was the number one.
Well, that's a big deal because Carl Ball is like, I don't know, he's like the king of slams in Biscayne Bay, and he's going out of Key Biscayne. He's not like down there by Elliott Key or Turkey Point or whatever. So not only did you get a bonefish, but you got a Biscayne Bay bonefish.
Which is the hardest place to catch them, you said.
Right. It's definitely the hardest place to catch them. And the other thing I liked about your story is you didn't give up. You know what I mean? And once you decided you wanted to get your bonefish, what did you do? 3 bonefish trips in a matter of, 2 weeks? 10 days?
Yeah, we did a lot. I was hitting it hard between, when we did it with Carl, and then I went by myself, and then I went with Drew, and I couldn't freaking get him, and I was just like...
But the thing is that you did get him.
But then I did
To
get
only
him.
go 2 times and not get one, and then get one on your 3rd time is extremely successful. That's like not the norm, especially going by yourself, and
sight cat. I'm not gonna lie, like you guys, like everybody knows, I'm usually very humble. I don't really brag. I don't, I'm very quiet. But I was very proud because I was like sight casting them with an artificial jig is like the hardest thing to do. It's one thing with a shrimp because you can just kind of let the shrimp sit there and then they'll smell it at some point. But it's another thing because you got to make sure that jig lands perfectly. And you got to make sure when you bounce it that, you don't do it too much to where it spooks them.
Sure, there's a lot of skill to it, a lot involved. It's not just definitely not like chumming.
No.
And then
and not to say there's anything wrong with catching them by chumming either. It's just
it's different.
I got to tell you, even like I said, when I caught the first one, I was like, awesome! I finally got my bonefish. Yes. Dude, when I got that second one, though, it was like my heart was racing like freaking a mile a minute. I was like, dude, this is incredible. I was like, I finally saw what you and Scott talked about. I totally understood the excitement. And let me tell you, it's not all just hype. I mean, if you got I asked Carl, I said to him, because, and then we missed a bunch of them too. Right. I almost had a third one. He hit it, and I got too excited, and I freaking accidentally yanked it out of his mouth. But again, it's all a learning curve. But I said to Carl, Carl, do you have a lot of guys that, claim to be great fishermen and they struggle with this? And he's telling me, he goes, I had a guy one time, literally from the second he got on the boat, wouldn't stop telling me about how good a fisherman he is offshore. He said that this guy got so frustrated on the flats. He actually said, that's it. I'm done. I've had it. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's go back.
Really?
I'm like, because now mind you, listen, there were times where Carl was like, dude, you landed it right on their heads, and it's all part of the game. You can't get mad.
No, you can't get mad.
You can't get mad.
You got to enjoy that. Like if you don't have any, tolerance, or you want to catch an easy fish, don't go bone fishing, especially not in Biscayne Bay. But Carl's been through it so many times. And the confidence that, he has pulling you around and knowing that if you spend the time out there that he's going to get the job done. And to me, that's probably the smartest thing you could have did. You go, you get the right person that's going to tell you the right things. It's going to put you in the right situation. And then you can expect things to happen. And tell me a little bit about spending that much time with Carl. Because I've known Carl probably, 20 years or so that I actually, really knew him and he knew me. I've never spent more than, well, the most time I've ever spent with him was at LunkerCon, or when we sat down and did Trip Alive and hung out, like that. But I've never been on the boat with Carl.
I got to tell you, and it's funny because, I met Carl through you. We did Trip Alive, and, it's kind of just like small talk when you do that kind of stuff. But when you're on the boat with him and you see just how genuine of a freaking guy he is, I actually feel like now I'm at a point with him where I feel literally like as good of friends with him as I do with you. I mean, he and I, let me tell you, when I tell you we laughed, I mean, we were actually, again, we'd spooked him a couple times, and, we see him on the other side again, and we've spooked him like 6 times already. And we were sitting there going like, all right, there they are. Let's go spook the hell out of them again, and we're laughing.
Right.
We're having a good time.
See, what you're experiencing is you're Carl's client now, and Carl is an all-star guide.
He is.
So all-star guides treat their clients like they're their best friends.
You feel like your family practically.
Well, you're going to be spending hours one-on-one on the boat, with the guide. So if the guide has enough talent to put you on the fish, and then he has enough talent to make it fun the whole day, and then he has enough talent to actually make a relationship with you, that's a full circle. That's what you strive to do as a guide. And then when you do that, like Carl did, you enjoy it. You know what you did. You put a good person on his first bonefish, and it was important for Carl to be the first one to put you on there because he knows for the rest of your life.
I'll remember that.
You're going to remember that, and nobody else can do that now.
Nobody else can ever say, I put Steven on his first sight-casted bonefish in Biscayne Bay.
Not only can they not say that, they can't do it. It's done. He did it.
He did it.
And that's got to make him feel good. And
I'll tell you, it really meant a lot when he said to me, I really wanted to be the one to put you on your first bonefish. That meant something.
And he was sincere.
And he was sincere about it. And I told him, I said, when I first got into saltwater fishing, like pretty hardcore, I said that, I was like, I wanted to get my first tarpon with you, which I did.
Right.
And then I remember saying to him, I said, I really want to get my first bonefish with Carl. And to hear him say that back to me, that was the coolest thing. Because, I hold Carl in the same kind of high regard that I do with you.
Duh.
Where I'm like, I look at you guys, like I look up to you guys as, being people that I strive to be. You know what I mean? And so it's just, to me, it's one thing to be a guide that, can go around and say like, oh, I'm going to put you on world-class fish. But it's another one to actually be a guide where people say, dude, we had so much fun. Even if we didn't catch anything, we still had a blast.
Yep.
How many guides can say that, Jeff?
Well,
Honestly.
not all of them. As a matter of fact, not all of them. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And not all of them all the time.
Yeah.
But when you can, you feel like, you hit a grand slam or a home run. You did it. You hit it on the head. Now, Carl, I want to get him in here.
We need to get him in here.
We're going to get him in here to do a podcast. And I'm glad that you're in here now because we'll talk a little bit about your bonefish with Carl. But what I really want to talk about, Carl, when I get him in here is about the grand slams. I mean, the guy consecutively gets grand slams out there. I mean, and not just in the peak seasons. He gets them in the summer. He gets them in the fall. He gets them in
year-round.
Year-round. And that's Biscayne Bay Grand Slam. That's a whole nother story than all the other places. And I really want to get into his mind, because I fish down there a lot, but I'm tarpon fishing, and getting a slam isn't even like, really in my forte. I don't have the boat for it. I could get a bonefish here and there, but it's not something that, that my clients expect or that I strive for. But him, he gets to do that, and he gets to pick the days. I'm sure sometimes a slam happens to him, but I bet you a lot of times, he knows he can get a slam. And then he goes out there and do that. So I want to do an episode with him, and I want to get into that mindset of actually getting a slam.
He, you talk about getting into his mind. There were times where he was on the back. Because mind you, he's elevated, so he can see a little bit better than I can. But there were times where he would say to me, "I don't want you to cast until you can see them." he'd be like, there they are right there. You see them? And I was just like, I don't see them. I'm gonna be honest with you, Carl. I don't see them.
Well,
and it's like
it ain't easy.
And but little by little though, it was cool as the day went on because he was teaching me what to look for. And then at one point, I actually said to him, I said, Carl, there they are. And he goes, good eye. He goes, you see? Now you're learning.
Yeah, and you start gaining a little confidence, and then you feel like you're more in the game, and that's what it's all about. Because as you keep bone fishing, you're going to improve, and you're going to be able to see things a little better, a little clearer. You're going to be able to anticipate the fish a little bit more.
You're going to know what to look for.
Right. It's all a learning curve. And then just like I said, I'm so jealous. Like, I wish I could feel that all over again like you are.
I was shaking. Like, you should have seen me after I let him go. Carl got a really cool shot of me releasing the fish, too. But I was shaking. Afterward, I said, Carl, look at my hands. I'm still freaking shaking from this.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that it happened. And that was my first time ever trying to even sight cast him. And that to me was like, I looked up and I just said, I was like, man, God must have really been smiling on me today. Because, that was freaking...
Dude, anytime that you're alive and you're spending time with great people in awesome places, yeah, I'd say God's looking down on you with a big smile on his face.
I'd tell you, he was smiling that day. And I tell you, even the times where we spooked them a lot, and sometimes they were next to the boat and we didn't realize it, and he and I turned around too quick and they bolted, and we were like, oh crap, they were right there.
I was with Carl just a couple nights before your trip.
I think he mentioned that
up in Orlando at the ICAST show.
Yes, he did mention that.
And Captains for Clean Waters had a little get together one evening, and I went over there, and both George Gods and Carl texted me, and it was like, dude, come over for the Captains for Clean Waters thing. And I didn't even know it. Like, I knew George because I was in contact with him, but I didn't know Carl had texted me until after I was already there. But that was awfully nice. That was probably at ICAST this week. That was probably definitely the highlight of my trip. Was getting to hang out with the Captains for Clean Waters, because I did the one recording with Tom Green that I was going to drop last week, but the night it was Tuesday night where we usually upload the podcast, and I was hanging with all the Captains for Clean Waters people, and they were so nice to me.
And they didn't try to sell you anything, did they?
They didn't try to sell me anything. And we were all hanging and having some beers, and I was getting to meet people's wives. I was hanging out with Benny Blanco, who I never get a chance to hang out with, that I've known forever. I met all the dudes that were like, that were active in the Captain for Clean Waters. All the Keys guys were all hanging out, and we were just having a really good time. And we were talking about you, me and Carl.
Were you really?
Of course. Of course,
what
he
do you
was.
Have to say?
Well, he was totally pissed that that there was so much rain and he wasn't able to
get the bone
on the first trip. And at that point, he didn't know you guys were going again, right?
Yes, because you guys had gotten back, and I called him. I had to call him to ask him about something else, and he said to me, he goes, we should do another trip, and I said, yeah, we should, and I went, what do you got coming up? And he goes, I got Saturday. I go, this Saturday? He goes, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, dude, let's do it.
Nice.
Let's just do it. I said, let's not even overthink it. I just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I said, let's book it. I didn't know. Well, because you'll start overthinking it like, oh, can I afford it? And I just said, no. I said, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to do it and just run with it.
Yeah. And then and trust me when I tell you, unless you make a lot of dough, if you start the bonefish game or any of these fishing games, you will spend all your extra money on it.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
But let me tell you, though, Jeff, to me, that's money well spent.
Well, hell yeah, it's well spent.
Because let me tell you, when I first went out with Carl, we didn't get to go. So when we went to the flats, we were in literally the middle of nowhere. And it's just literally flats as far as the eye could see. You could see Key Biscayne, but we're talking miles.
You were in the middle of Key Biscayne.
Well, no, but we could see the
Biscayne
islands.
Bay.
I'm saying, like where land is, where Miami is.
Right.
Literally looked about like an inch big.
Right.
That's how far out we were. And I remember when we first got there, we kind of held up, and this was when we started chumming them. I remember looking around going, Carl, this is the flats. This is what I've seen on TV. This is what I've listened to Jeff and Scott talk about. We're here.
This have arrived.
This is the old stomping ground right here. And we're actually here.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, and I will tell you, even the bonnethead sharks, because at one point I was reeling it in, and this bonnethead jumped and slammed the shrimp. I couldn't believe it. Took off like a bullet, and I was like, they're annoying, but that was cool.
He gave you a one hopper.
He gave me a one hopper.
When we were kids, we would get in the little whaler. We had a 15-foot whaler, and it was a pretty quick boat. Had like a 70 on it.
Yeah.
But we could leave our house here in Fort Lauderdale and be in Biscayne Bay. It would take us, I don't know, maybe an hour going down the intercoastal.
That's not bad at
all.
all.
No, we were kids. We used to do it all the time. And there wasn't really any, idle speed zones back then. There was no manatee zones back then. So, really, you'd leave the house and you just cruise down the intercoastal early in the morning. It'd still be dark out. You just hauling ass down there. And then you could actually get to the middle of Biscayne Bay from Fort Lauderdale, I don't know, hour and a half, hour.
That's not bad.
And then we'd sit out there all damn day, trying to figure out, where the fish were and stuff. And back then, having the whaler, we weren't really into poling or whatever. We just wanted to be in the bay. And we would catch whatever the heck we could catch. Sometimes bonefish, sometimes permit, a lot of sharks, a lot of barracudas.
Yeah.
But going down to Biscayne Bay, back then was, I don't know, we didn't do it all the time, but we could do it anytime. And it was a little bit different. It was a lot different. But I don't know. I grew to like that place, and I think every time you catch a fish in there,
it's special.
It's definitely special. It's Biscayne Bay. You got the friggin' Miami sitting right there looking at you. You got the U's right there. You got, University of Miami's over there. You got old Doodoo Mountain down there by Homestead and Cutler Ridge.
Uh-huh.
They call that Black's Point. And then, all the outer keys, Stiltsville, Key Biscayne. And, I don't know, you just feel like you're in a different place, but you're still here.
I never got to see Stiltsville before, and I always wanted to see it. And I remember we were going. I go, Carl, is this Stiltsville? He's like, yep. And I was just in awe. I was like, wow, like this is really Stiltsville. I've heard about this place freaking for years.
Yep.
And when you see, and I remember Lamont put it best, the thing that people don't realize about the flats is a lot of people just think, shallow water, all right, it's pretty, it's cool, but then you realize you start seeing the sharks and the rays and the bonefish and the turtle, and then you realize, oh my gosh, the flats are alive.
They are, or they can be.
They're freaking alive, and it's like, whoa, because you didn't think about that at first. And let me tell you, I still remember seeing when Carl pointed out for the first time, those bonefish tailing. I remember thinking to myself, like, this is like something out of a dream. Like, they're really right there, and they're tailing, just like you see in the TV shows.
Yeah.
And here I am in the position that these guys are in on TV, about to do what they do. And then you do it. And, I mean, dude, like, you see me right now.
Settle down over there. Settle down over there. You're going to break the microphone.
I know, right? But let me tell you, I can't wait to book my next trip. That's all I'll say. And it's funny. I was telling, my buddy Billy, I don't know if you guys remember from Triple Live, the snakehead guy. I was telling him about it, and he's all fired up. Now, he's got a boat that's kind of like a flats boat. And he was like, maybe you and I could go out there one day and just anchor up on the flats. He goes, I don't have a pole or anything like that. And I was like, that's fine, dude. I was like, listen, we can still chum them. Nothing wrong with chumming them. But
you can just go out there and fish, and then you might get one.
But you
get a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, you're going to get your bonnethead sharks,
your mutton snappers,
snapper, boxfish,
and then maybe a permit if you do it right.
We tried for permit. I think I told you.
You went to a couple permit spots.
We went to a couple permit spots, but the problem was the sun hadn't come out yet. So Carl was telling me, he goes, usually he says, I'll be able to see them, and then I'll be able to tell you where to cast. We couldn't see anything.
It was a little early.
So yeah, but then the sun came out full brightness. And then as soon as that happened and that tide started going out, I mean, the flats just came alive.
Start seeing everything.
Dude, I mean, we're talking stingrays as big as this table, lemon sharks. Right. We saw the school of bones that we were chasing. There was probably about 30 to 40 bones in that school.
Oh, really?
All the size of the one that I caught.
Very
like
nice.
7 and up.
Very nice.
And I'm looking at it, I go, Carl, those are some big freaking bones. He goes, yeah. He goes, that's actually probably about average for this area. And I went, that's
Biscayne
average?
bonefish are big, and when they're in a school like that, then that's how you know that's kind of like the average fish. Those average fish seem to school up like that. When they get a little bigger, they'll like break off in 2s and 3s or singles. So yeah, if there was a whole bunch of them like that. But yeah, the average bonefish in Biscayne Bay is pretty large. And
he said 6 to 8.
Yeah,
it's like the average.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
6 to 8 pounds, so they're big and they're twice as spooky. And yeah,
that's what he told me.
Yeah, I mean, that's your A game. If you can catch them out there in Biscayne Bay, then you know you're playing your A game. Or you're with somebody that knows how to play the A game. That's not, for the weak.
I said to Carl, I remember saying to him, I said, Carl, I don't care about what some of these guys talk about, how hard they are going offshore, 40 miles, catching this, that, and the other. I was like, this kind of fishing is not for the faint of heart. I said, this kind of fishing to me, I feel like, is going to separate the men from the boys. I was like, because you got to be able to not only you got to make sure that you are so accurate with your cast, and then you got to be so careful when you bounce that jig, because if you bounce it too hard, they're taken off.
Yeah.
There's so many now, Jeff, I wanted to ask you, when you and Scott were going down there,
right?
Because I know you're a pretty phenomenal fisherman. You're really, really good at that stuff. Did you miss a lot of bones?
Did I miss a lot of bones? I don't know if I missed a lot of bones. Did I have a lot of bones turn me down? Yes. You know what I mean? Like, there's days out there in Biscayne Bay where you do everything right. You find a ton of fish. You make the right cast. You get the bait, and they just turn you down.
Really?
Yeah. And they'll do it over and over and over again, sometimes for multiple days in a row.
That's got to be frustrating.
It's frustrating. And then, but like you said, there's so much other stuff going on while the bones are turning you down. And if they didn't turn you down, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal when you finally got them.
Right.
Well, like catching bonefish in the Bahamas is kind of like, it's catching bonefish in the Bahamas. You don't just catch bonefish in Biscayne Bay. You have to fish for them. You have to fish for them hard. And when you catch one, it's definitely a different feeling, a different experience. I mean, you're looking for numbers and you just want to catch bonefish, go out to the Caribbean and go to the Bahamas or whatever. But if you want, the ultimate challenge,
the ultimate experience,
the ultimate challenge is Biscayne Bay.
Why do you think? I asked Carl about this. He wasn't sure. Why do you think that the Biscayne bones are so much harder and spookier to catch?
Well, they get more pressure, and there are generations of fish that have been dodging fishermen.
They're not. They're not in the Bahamas. They're not hit as hard.
Oh no, dude! They don't. Man, there's fish in the Bahamas. Lots of fish that never even seen a boat before. Never mind a bone fisherman before. But think about it. Like a 3 or 4 pound small bonefish. Maybe they're 1, 2, 3 years old. A lot of those fish never even had something be thrown at them before. A 3-year-old bonefish in Biscayne Bay or a 2-year-old bonefish in Biscayne Bay, probably all of them have had somebody throwing something at them, chasing them, stalking them around, whatever. You know what I mean? There's and then the other thing too is I think that when you get on the once you don't get bonefish too much further north than here.
No.
You can get a little bit further north, but not too much further north than here. And I think when you get on the outskirts of the territories where these fish can hang, you often get bigger and I don't know if you want to say smarter. I hate to say smarter, but more experienced fish, if you know what I mean. Simply because, there's 3 million people that right in front of Biscayne Bay.
They're used to seeing it.
Right, and the tourists are coming year round, not just during the season. And it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. But congratulations on your first Bonefish Busacca.
Thanks,
I think that's friggin' totally awesome. And I hope the people that were listening tonight, felt, your energy. And if they haven't caught a bonefish, maybe that'll motivate them to go get one or just make them want to get one a little bit more. And
I'm telling you guys, call Carl.
Yeah, if everybody wants to go down there and get on the flats in Biscayne Bay, it's Carl Ball, AWOL Charters. AWOL like AWOL.
AWOL, yep.
Yeah, AWOL Charters. Super nice guy. He'll put the odds in your favor. If you just want to do Biscayne Bay and not fish for bonefish, catch tarpon and that type of thing, you can look me up, jeff@lunkerdog.com. But anyway, Busacca, thanks for coming in today. Congratulations on your first bonefish. And I'm not sure if you're going to lose your nickname, the Shepherd, and get a new name. What do you want to call it?
Lamont's thinking Bonefish Busacca.
Bonefish Busacca. I think maybe you might want to get a couple years of bonefish under your belt before you change your name.
I know, because I told Ryan, the Canadian, I said, I think I'm going to have to catch a few more before I can really own that name.
Yeah, I think maybe a few more, maybe like 100 or something.
Yeah, at least.
And then you get the Bonefish
And then I
Busacca
can be
name.
that. Yep. So.
But for this episode and for this week, and to celebrate your first bonefish, we're going to name this episode Bonefish Busacca.
I love it.
All right,
Thanks
run
for
that
having
dog,
me.
Steve.
Thanks for having me on here,
And
guys.
we're all real proud of you.
Thanks, dog.